You can't sleep? Yeah, me neither. That's why I've got something for us tonight. 5 stories you won't forget. Stories that crawl under your skin, twist what you think is safe, and make you wonder what's waiting in the dark once this video ends. Let's begin. Story 1. Wrong Funeral. I need to warn you about something that happened to me. If you've ever shown up late to a funeral, you know the shame that comes with it. The creak of the doors, the heads turning, the silent judgment. But that's not what I want to warn you about. Because when I walked into this funeral, I wasn't just late. I wasn't supposed to be there at all. And by the time I realized why, it was already too late to leave. The rain is relentless as I pull into the church lot. The asphalt is slick and black, dotted with glowing puddles reflecting the yellow streetlights. Mist curls low across the ground, rolling like smoke. The church rises ahead of me, carved stone blackened with age, streaked with rainwater. The bell tower looms crooked against storm clouds, the cross at its peak catching brief flashes of light. I'm supposed to be here for my uncle's service. I don't even know which uncle. Dad's family is huge, but family is family. So here I am, soaked to the bone, shirt clinging to my back, running late. The oak doors resist when I pull them. They groan open, releasing a rush of warm, stale air. The smell of candle wax and damp wood mixes with the heavy perfume of lilies, so thick it catches in my throat. Inside, the air feels heavy, like the church itself is holding its breath. Light filters through stained glass in warped patterns of red and blue, spilling across cracked marble floors. Wooden pews stretch toward the altar, every seat filled with mourners in black. I expect to slip in unnoticed, but the moment I step inside, I feel it. Every head turns, dozens of faces staring at me in perfect silence. Not annoyed, not curious, recognizing, like they've been waiting for me. My legs feel unsteady, but I force myself down the aisle and slide into a back pew. The wood is damp, clammy under my hand, as though someone had just been sitting there. Up front, the casket rests beneath an arch of pale lilies. A framed photo sits beside it. From this distance, the image blurs in the candlelight. A man, middle-aged, heavier than me. Tired eyes. But there's something about the shape of his jaw. Something about the scar above his eyebrow. The exact scar I have. The priest clears his throat at the pulpit, his voice low but carrying through the vaulted ceiling. Today we gather to remember a man taken before his time. His words echo strangely, as though the church is bigger than it looks. Shadows stretch long across the cracked marble floor, swaying with every flicker of the candles. I scan the crowd, searching desperately for a familiar face. My parents, my cousins, anybody. But no one looks familiar. Every mourner is a stranger, pale, expressionless. Some clutch tissues, others just stare at the floor, unmoving. Then one of them shifts, a woman in the pew ahead of me. She turns her head slowly, eyes swollen and red, cheeks slick with tears. She studies me with a broken expression and whispers, barely audible, "You look just like him." The words hit harder than they should. My chest tightens. I force myself to look at the casket again. It's closed, draped in lilies. The framed photo beside it catches the light, and the resemblance gnaws deeper at me. The scar, the tired eyes, the familiar slant of the mouth. It could be me in 10 years. The priest continues. His tone shifts, soft but deliberate, like he's speaking only to me. He walks among us even now, but he cannot stay. Tonight, we let him go. The mourners bow their heads in eerie unison. Their lips move silently, words I can't hear. My stomach twists. My legs move on their own, pushing me upright. I mutter an excuse. I need air, I shouldn't even be here. But as I step into the aisle, a figure blocks my way. A tall man in a black suit, broad shoulders, his face blank, unreadable. "You can't leave," he says. I freeze. The organ starts, deep and booming, reverberating through the pews. The mourners rise with it, one by one, black clothes rustling like wings in the silence between notes. And somehow, without even realizing it, I rise too, drawn forward, pulled toward the casket with the rest of them. The lid is cracked open now, just enough to see pale skin, a slack mouth, a face that looks exactly like mine. I don't think. I just run. The church doors burst open under my hands, slamming against the stone walls. The night swallows me whole, rain hammering down, lightning splitting the sky in blinding flashes. I sprint across the lot, shoes slipping on the slick asphalt. My car waits under a flickering street lamp, its reflection warping in the puddles. I dive inside, slam the lock, and check the rearview mirror. The church is different, not glowing with warm light anymore, not filled with mourners. It's abandoned. Windows shattered, ivy crawling up the walls, chains padlocked across the doors, like no one's been inside for decades. I blink and it changes again. Candles flicker, stained glass glows, people spill out, black umbrellas blooming in the rain, both versions of the church bleeding into each other until I can't tell which is real. I drive until my hands cramp around the wheel, until my eyes sting from staring through the rain. Finally, my parents' house comes into view. The porch light glows warm, golden against the storm. Relief nearly drops me to my knees as I pull into the drive. My family stands outside, all of them, together. But every one of them is dressed in black, and none of them look at me. Their eyes pass straight through the windshield, past me like I'm not even there. "His service was beautiful," my mother whispers, voice trembling. "He would have liked it." I shake my head, breath coming in sharp bursts. I fumble for something real, something solid, and glance at the car window beside me. No reflection. The glass shows the yard, the porch light, the trees shifting in the wind. But not me. The organ swells again, distant, at first, then louder, louder, until it's vibrating through my ribs. My phone buzzes in the cup holder. One new message, from my own number. "Sit down, the service isn't over." The driveway darkens, dissolves. My family fades into shadows, and then I'm back. Back inside the church, back in the pew. The air heavy with lilies and candle smoke. The mourners bow their heads. The priest looks up from the pulpit, his smile small but satisfied. He's with us again. The organ roars, shaking the walls. And I finally understand. This isn't a funeral, it's a ritual. They don't bury you here, they keep you forever. You're still here, careful. Once you like and subscribe, there's no going back. Story 2. When you close your eyes, it appears. When I think back to my childhood, there's one place that stands out more than anything else. It wasn't grand or impressive. In fact, if you passed it on the street, you probably wouldn't even notice it. But to me, it was sacred. My little escape. It was where summer days stretched forever, where the air smelled like grass warmed by the sun, and where the world felt simple and safe. The kind of place that exists only for kids, untouched by adult worries. glowing with that fragile kind of magic you never get back once you've grown. I can still picture it, the way the light hit at a certain hour, how the sounds seemed sharper there, the crunch of gravel, the rustle of leaves, even the way my own footsteps echoed. As a child it felt alive, as if the place itself was watching over me. Of course, at the time, I thought nothing of it. Why would I? Childhood is built on little pockets of wonder, but looking back now, there's something unsettling in how vividly I remember every detail, almost too vividly, as if the place had left its mark on me, and maybe it did. Because even now, decades later, the smallest things can drag me back there. The smell of sun-warmed grass, the sound of gravel underfoot. They don't just remind me of my childhood. They remind me of that place, sharper than almost any other memory I have. It's like it never really let me go. The place wasn't always laughter and sunlight. There were moments, tiny fleeting ones, that felt off even if I didn't understand why at the time. It started small. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps when I knew I was alone, just a faint crunch on the gravel behind me, quick enough that I'd look around and see nothing there. I'd laugh it off, tell myself it was an animal, maybe a branch snapping under its own weight. But even then, the sound had a rhythm, a human rhythm. Other times I'd be sitting there perfectly still when a sudden silence would fall. Not the normal kind, not like the end of a song or a pause between words. This was heavier, like the world itself was holding its breath. The birds would stop, the wind would die. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring because you're straining to hear something, anything. And I can't explain this part, but I always had the feeling that if I spoke during those silences, something would answer. Something that was waiting just out of sight. Maybe that's why I still can't stand silence as an adult. Even now, I have to keep music on when I'm home alone, just to fill the air. Because when it gets too quiet, when the world holds its breath, I start to feel like I'm back there again. I remember asking once, just casually, if anyone else ever went there. My dad didn't even look up. He just shook his head. But my mom froze, her hand hovering midair, like she wanted to say something. Instead, she just muttered, "Don't go there too late." That was it. No explanation. No story. Just a warning. But even as a kid, I noticed the way she said it, like she wasn't giving me advice. She was giving me a rule. Back then, I thought it was my secret place. But the older I get, the more I wonder. Was I really the one who discovered it? Or was it the one that discovered me? I don't remember exactly how old I was when it happened. Maybe 9. Old enough to know what I saw. Young enough that no one believed me. It was late in the day, the kind of evening where the sky turns orange, then purple, then grey in the space of minutes. I had stayed too long, though I knew my mom's rule, don't go there too late. But I didn't want to leave. The air was cooler, the place quieter. It felt different. That's when I heard it. A voice. Low, almost like a whisper, coming from deeper in the clearing. It didn't say my name, not exactly, but it had that sound. The way a parent's voice cuts through a crowd, the way it feels aimed at you. I froze. My first thought was that another kid had found my spot. Maybe someone hiding, playing a joke. But when I looked around, it was empty. Too empty. The air was thick, heavy. Then I saw it. Not clearly, never clearly. But there was something standing at the tree line, tall, thin, still, watching me. I blinked, and it was gone. Just trees swaying in the wind. I wanted to believe it was a trick of the light, but here's the part I can't explain. The gravel behind me crunched. One step, just one. Slow, deliberate. I ran all the way home. And here's what always struck me as strange. My mom always worried when I was late. She'd call me in with that sharp voice, sometimes even come looking for me, but not once, not a single time, did she ever come to that place. Neither of them did. It was as if they couldn't, as if it wasn't somewhere they could reach. That night, when I burst through the door, breathless and shaking, they didn't ask where I'd been, only what I thought I saw. Of course, they brushed it off. Bad dream, imagination, you scared yourself. But I remember my mom's face as I spoke. She didn't look surprised. She looked tired, like she had heard it all before, and I never told anyone this part. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake for hours, too afraid to close my eyes, certain something was standing in my doorway. I was too scared to call out, too scared to move. Even now, decades later, I still sleep with the door shut tight. That was the first time I knew something was wrong, but it wouldn't be the last. Years passed, and like most childhood haunts, I stopped going. School got harder, friends became more important, life moved on. The place faded from my daily routine, but it never really left my mind. It lingered in flashes, those silences, those footsteps, that shadow in the trees. By the time I was an adult, I had half convinced myself it was just a kid's overactive imagination. A story I told myself so many times it felt real. But there was one thing I couldn't explain, the sharpness of the memory. Most of my childhood is a blur now. Teachers' names, old houses we lived in, even whole summers, they've softened with time, but that place is carved into me. Every detail still burns bright, the crunch of gravel, the curve of the path, the way the air felt when the world went silent. And when I tried to find it again, really tried, as an adult, I couldn't. I drove down the old roads, I swore, led there. I walked through fields and neighborhoods that should have been familiar. Nothing. It was gone. Not just gone, but impossible to place, like it had been cut out of the world entirely. And yet, it was still the most vivid memory I had. That contradiction gnawed at me. How could I remember something so clearly when it never seemed to exist at all? That's when the cracks started to show. I began to notice how it seeped into everything. Into my habits, into my fears, into my work, the way I avoid silence, the way I keep doors shut at night, even the stories I write and the sketches I make. Half the time, I don't even realize I'm recreating it until it's done. Paths leading nowhere, places that shouldn't exist. It all comes back to there. At first, I thought it was nostalgia, then obsession, but now I'm starting to wonder if it was something else entirely. Something that didn't just live in my memory, something that's been living through it. It started small, a slip of the hand while doodling during a work call, and there it was again. The same crooked path, the same arching trees. The lines came too easily, like I wasn't drawing it so much as remembering it. I told myself it was nothing. Muscle memory. Childhood nostalgia bleeding through. But soon it wasn't just sketches. It was stories. Every blank page I tried to fill somehow circled back to the same setting. Lonely fields, dead-end trails, a silence that swallowed sound. And then it spread into my dreams. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with gravel still crunching under my feet, the scent of damp grass in my nose, convinced I'd only just walked away from it. More than once, I found myself standing at the window, staring out at the dark as if I'd hear footsteps outside. That was when I started to realize maybe I had never left at all. The strangest part, I wasn't the only one. I never told anyone about the place, not once, but people around me began to describe things that sounded eerily close. A coworker mentioned a dream about a path that led nowhere. A friend sketched a clearing while drunk at my kitchen table, then stared at it like he didn't know why he'd drawn it. I laughed it off, but inside, I was shaken. Because the more I thought about it, the more it felt like the place was slipping through me into other people's lives, feeding itself. And deep down, I knew why. It wasn't that I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was that it didn't want me to. It wanted to stay alive. For years I thought I was keeping this memory alive, clinging to it, feeding it. But that's not the truth. The truth is, it's been keeping me. Every time I drew it, every time I dreamed about it, every time I filled silence with music or shut a door against the dark, I wasn't avoiding it. I was obeying it, carrying it forward. And then came the realization that broke me. No one else remembered this place because it was never there. Not in the way a park or a street or a backyard exists. It was never a place. It was something that used the shape of a place. Something that waits in memory, not in soil. That's why my parents never came for me there. That's why my mom only gave me rules, never answers. That's why I could never find it again as an adult. Because it wasn't anywhere to be found. It was inside me. And now it's inside you. Because all it takes to keep it alive is knowing. You don't have to stand where I stood, or hear the gravel shift behind you, or feel the air crush down in silence. You only have to picture it, carry it, let the thought of it follow you home. And you already have. It doesn't matter where my place was, it only matters that you've heard about it. And now that you know, it's only a matter of time before it finds a corner in your own world. So tell me, when you close your eyes tonight, where will it appear? Story 3. Chat tried to warn him, but he didn't listen. Jake wasn't famous. He wasn't even close. On Twitch and YouTube, he was just another small streamer, grinding late nights with a handful of loyal viewers. He wasn't good at games, not really. But he was good at overreacting. Screaming at jump scares, flailing around when something startled him. His audience loved it. But lately, the views had slowed. The donations dried up. And Jake was desperate for something big. So when his chat dared him to stream from Ridgeview Asylum, an abandoned psychiatric hospital at 3 in the morning, he said yes instantly. That was his first mistake. The stream opened with Jake's usual energy, flashing overlays, chat exploding with excitement, his flashlight beam cutting through the night. "What's up, guys? It's your boy Jake, and tonight we're doing something insane. Ridgeview Asylum. Creepiest place in the state. And yeah, I'm here alone, at 3 a.m. You asked for it, so here I am." Donations started rolling in. Bet you won't go past the front door. Go straight to the basement, bro. Last 10 minutes and I'll gift 50 subs. Jake laughed, forcing confidence. Y'all are ruthless, let's go. The asylum loomed ahead, shattered windows, rotting wood. A black mouth of a doorway, yawning open like it was waiting. Jake muttered, half joking, "Yeah, this is a terrible idea." Then he stepped inside. The halls were silent, too silent. Every creak of the floor echoed like a scream. Jake panned his camera around. Graffiti smeared across the walls, rusted bed frames shoved into corners, a broken wheelchair lying on his side. Bro, this is like every horror movie ever. I swear something's about to pop out at me. Chat spammed emojis and laughing faces. Jake forced a grin, but the longer he stayed, the thinner it became. He wandered deeper, past empty rooms filled with crumbling furniture, past doorways leading to pitch-black corridors. The camera caught his breath clouding in the cold. Okay, yeah, it's colder in here. That's normal, right? Old building, no heat, nothing weird. But his voice shook. To prove he wasn't scared, he picked the door and pushed it open. The hinges screamed. Inside, rows of rusted bed frames lined up like skeletal ribs. Chat lit up. This is cursed. Turn back. Don't go in there. Jake stepped in anyway. His flashlight beam dragged across the beds. Something shifted in the corner. He froze. Yo, was that a rat? Please tell me that was a rat. Nothing moved. He laughed nervously. Okay, yeah, definitely a rat. Totally fine. Totally chill. But his smile was gone now. Then came the first message in chat. Behind you. Jake whipped the camera around. Empty hallway. Nice try. He forced a laugh. Then another message. No, really. There's someone in the doorway. Jake checked again. Still nothing. Chat, I'm alone, okay? Stop trolling. The warnings multiplied. By the window. She's standing there. Don't turn around. Jake's grip tightened on his flashlight. Y'all are seeing things. And then he heard it. A whisper. A woman's voice. Slithering out of the dark hallway. Jake's blood ran cold. Did y'all hear that? Chat went insane. Yes! We told you! Get out! The flashlight flickered. The camera tilted slightly, as if brushed by an unseen hand. Jake fumbled for his phone, trying to end the stream. The end broadcast button froze. No matter how many times he tapped, the stream wouldn't stop. Okay, this isn't funny, Jake stammered. Who's messing with my stream? A door slammed shut behind him. The sound thundered through the asylum. Jake spun around, but the flashlight died completely. Only the faint glow of the camera lit his face. His voice broke. Guys, I don't think I'm alone. The chat filled with panic. Run! It's right behind you. Get out! Jake stumbled backwards. The stream glitched, frozen for a moment on his terrified face. And then, black screen. Stream offline. Viewers thought it was a stunt, a fake out for views. They clipped it, they laughed, called Jake a genius. But hours later, a new video appeared on his channel, titled Live Ridgeview Basement. The footage showed Jake, tied to a chair, a gag stuffed in his mouth, his eyes wide with horror. A single light bulb swung above him, casting shadows across the basement walls. He thrashed, he sobbed, he stared directly into the camera. And the chat was still active, thousands of viewers typing desperately. Don't look behind you. Oh my god, it's moving. Please don't turn around. In the final seconds, Jake did, just enough to reveal it. A tall, dark shadow, human, but not, rising behind him. The screen cut to black. The video ended. Jake's channel was never updated again. But sometimes, the live Ridgeview basement video reappears, streaming to whoever happens to be online, and the comments are always the same. Don't look behind you. Story 4. I don't recognize myself anymore. The doctors keep calling me lucky. They said no one walks away from a wreck like that. The truck slammed into our lane head-on, twisted steel like tin foil, glass glittering like ice across the asphalt. Most of the passengers didn't make it, but I did. Broken ribs, concussion, stitches down my arm, but alive. The hospital smells of antiseptic and old coffee. Every hallway hums with fluorescent lights that flicker just slightly, like they're tired of doing their job. The walls are the color of wet plaster, blank except for faded posters about hand washing. My room is small, the window looking out over the parking lot, where rain streaks the glass and makes the ambulance sirens blur into red smears. Everyone who visits me says the same thing. You're so lucky. My mom cries when she sees me, squeezing my hand like she's afraid it'll slip away. My brother pats my shoulder over and over, whispering, "You're okay, you're okay." And I smile, I nod, I play along. But every time someone looks at me, I can see it. A flicker, a hesitation. Like they're forcing themselves to believe what they're seeing. When I finally make it to the bathroom, I brace myself on the counter. The mirror above the sink is cracked in the corner, spider webbing out like frozen lightning. My reflection wavers under the dim yellow bulb. For a moment, I don't recognize the man staring back. The bruises I expect, the stitches, the swelling. But beneath all of that, there's something unfamiliar in the way my face sits on my bones. Like I'm remembering myself from a photograph, and the photo has been slightly edited. I lean closer. The fluorescent buzz fills the silence. My jaw looks stronger, my eyes just a shade darker, my skin different. I press my palm against my cheek, half expecting the reflection to feel wrong, colder than me. That night, the hospital is never quiet. Distant coughs echo down the hall. A monitor beeps in another room, irregular and sharp. Wheels squeak against linoleum as someone pushes a cart past my door. But underneath all of that, I hear whispers. Two nurses talking. Too low for most people to notice, but I catch it. Can't believe it. All the others. Yeah. And this file doesn't make sense. The blood work. The voices stop when they realize I'm awake. The door stays closed. I close my eyes and pretend to sleep. But the silence that follows is heavier than the whispers. The doctors keep calling me lucky. But as I trace the unfamiliar lines of my own face under the harsh hospital light, I can't help but wonder, lucky to be alive, or lucky to be someone else. Getting discharged feels like freedom at first. The hospital gown, the IV beeps, the smell of bleach, all behind me. My body still aches, ribs tight when I breathe, but at least I'm walking, breathing fresh air again. The world outside feels different. The sky looks washed out pale grey. The streets feel louder than I remember. Engines and chatter blending into a roar. Maybe it's the concussion, maybe it's trauma. That's what I tell myself. I stop at a grocery store on the way home. The lights hum overhead. The floors are slick with fresh wax. The produce mist sprays cold water onto my arm as I walk past. For the first time in days, I almost feel normal. Then I hear it. A voice, sharp, trembling with relief. "Daniel?" Before I can react, a woman runs toward me. Mid-30s, hair pulled back in a messy bun, eyes swollen red like she's been crying for days. She throws her arms around me before I can say a word. "Oh my God, Daniel," I thought. Her voice cracks. "I thought you were gone." I freeze. My ribs scream as she squeezes me. But that isn't what makes my stomach drop. It's the name. I push her back gently. I think you've got the wrong guy." Her smile falters. For a moment, she looks at me like I've just stabbed her. "No, it's you. It's Daniel. Don't do this. People are watching now." Shoppers stand with cereal boxes in their hands, staring at us like a scene unfolding on TV. "I'm not Daniel," I tell her, more firmly this time. "I don't know you." Tears spill down her face. She shakes her head violently, backing away. Her hand clamps over her mouth. She whispers something I can't quite hear, and then she turns and bolts down the aisle, vanishing into the crowd. I stand there, everyone still staring, my chest tight. My heart pounds so hard it rattles my ribs. By the time I pay and leave, I've convinced myself it's grief or a mistake. People see what they want to see, right? But later that same day, I stop for coffee. The cafe smells like burnt beans and sugar, indie music low in the background. The barista looks up and his face lights up in recognition. "Hey, you're back," he says. "Haven't seen you in forever. How's the new place?" The words slide into me like ice water. I don't know him. I don't know this place. And I've never moved anywhere. I don't answer. I just leave the coffee behind and walk out the door. By the time I make it home, my hands won't stop shaking. The groceries are still in the bag, sweating through the plastic. My phone vibrates with messages from friends, checking in. Normal voices, familiar words, but they feel far away. Because twice in one day, total strangers knew me by names I've never had. That night, I stand in front of the bathroom mirror. The light above hums, flickering in uneven bursts. My reflection stares back, exhausted, pale, dark circles under its eyes. I lean closer, studying every line, every bruise. And then the thought hits me with a weight that nearly knocks the air from my lungs. I don't see myself in the reflection. I see someone else. I start checking mirrors the way some people check locked doors. Every morning, every night, sometimes in between. I tell myself I just want reassurance, proof that I'm still me. But the more I look, the less certain I am. In the bathroom mirror, my jaw looks sharper. In the hallway mirror at work, it looks rounder, softer. In the tinted glass of a shop window, my hairline creeps higher than it should. It's never a drastic change, just enough to make me question my memory, just enough to make my stomach twist. One night, I snap. I line up 3 mirrors in my apartment. The bathroom mirror, the standing mirror from my bedroom, and a cheap handheld one I dig out of a drawer. I place them so they all reflect me at once. Under the buzz of the ceiling light, I study myself. 3 different versions stare back. The one in the bathroom mirror looks exhausted, sallow skin. The standing mirror shows a version of me with a scar along his temple, a scar I don't have. And in the handheld mirror, my right eye is brown instead of blue. I drop it. The glass cracks. My heart hammers in my chest, breath short and ragged. That's when I notice something else. A folded photograph on the floor by the door. No envelope, no note. Just slid underneath, waiting for me. My hands shake as I pick it up. It's a picture of me. I'm standing in front of a house I've never seen before, smiling with a woman and 2 kids I don't recognize. The woman's hand is on my chest, like we're married. The kids cling to my legs like I'm their father. And in the corner of the photo, behind my smiling face, I see something that makes my stomach twist into knots. It's my apartment window. The photo was taken here, from outside. I stare at it until my vision blurs, until I can't tell if the man in the picture is me at all. I can't let it go. The photo, the strangers, the shifting reflections. None of it makes sense unless something's been kept from me. So I go back to the hospital. The place reeks of ammonia and wet floors. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead like a swarm of insects. My ribs ache with every breath, but I force myself to the records desk. I need my file, I say. The receptionist doesn't look me in the eye. She prints it without argument, slides the folder across the counter like it's burning her hands. Inside, I don't recognize anything. The name at the top is mine. But the blood type? Wrong. Allergies? Wrong. A surgical history I've never had. Is this a mistake? I demand. My voice cracks. She glances around the room before leaning closer. Her voice is a whisper. If you want the truth, go downstairs, the basement, but you won't thank me for it. The morgue smells like cold metal and chemicals that fail to mask decay. The attendant doesn't ask questions, she just opens a drawer. The body inside makes my skin crawl. It's a man from the wreck. His skull is caved in, his jaw hanging loose, but stitched crudely along his arm is a scar I know. Because I've been tracing that same line on my own skin for days. My stomach lurches. Another drawer. A woman this time. Her chest collapsed, her skin waxy. But her ribs. I know those ribs. I feel them every time I breathe. The attendant watches me tremble, her eyes flat and cold. You didn't walk away from that crash, she says. No one did. I stagger back, shaking my head. But I'm alive. She cuts me off. You're alive because we made you. What could be saved was taken. Bones, organs, flesh. You're stitched together from the pieces of the dead. A patchwork survivor. The room tilts. My throat closes. My hands claw at my own skin, desperate to feel where I end and where they begin. I want to scream, but the air won't come. All I can see are the faces of the others, silent, pale, lifeless, staring from their drawers, pieces of them carved out and sewn into me. Every stranger who's recognized me wasn't wrong. They were seeing the parts of their son, their husband, their friend, still walking, wearing my name. I am not lucky. I am stolen. I don't remember the walk home. I only remember the feeling of every step, heavy, unsteady, like my own body no longer trusts me to move it. I sit with the photo for hours, the smiling man with the wife and children, his hand on their shoulders like he belongs there. At first I tell myself it's just another stranger's face grafted onto me, a cruel coincidence. But the longer I look, the harder it is to push back the feeling clawing at me. Because I don't just see the photo, I remember it. I can hear the children's voices. I can taste the smoke of the barbecue that must have been behind the camera. I can feel the weight of a wedding ring pressing against my skin, a ring I've never worn. My hands tremble so violently I nearly tear the photo in half. That night the memories keep coming. Not dreams, not hallucinations, memories. A woman's perfume clinging to a winter coat, the ache of arthritis in joints I don't have, the sound of a lullaby hummed in a voice that isn't mine. They come in fragments at first, then in floods, until I can't tell where they end and I begin. By morning, I don't trust my own thoughts. I don't know which ones are mine anymore. When I catch myself humming a song I don't recognize, a song that makes my chest tighten with grief, I realize the truth. I'm not being haunted. I'm being replaced. The lives sewn into me are waking up, louder each day, drowning out the man I used to be. Their habits, their pains, their voices, pushing mine further down into the dark. And the terrifying part isn't that I'll die. It's that I'll vanish, smothered beneath lives that aren't mine. One day soon, there will be nothing left of the man who sat in this apartment, who once knew who he was. When people stop me on the street, calling me by names I don't know, maybe they're not wrong. Maybe they're seeing the future. Maybe they're already meeting the others, through me. and when they finally finish taking back what's theirs, there won't be anything left for me at all. Just silence, in a body that no longer remembers I was ever here. Story 5. Don't you dare tell nobody. Don't you dare tell nobody, Daddy said after he killed Mama. He was so close I could feel his breath against the covers, pulled over my head. I was too scared to move, even if the thought had popped in my head to run out to find somebody to tell. I'd heard them fighting again, and I'd wished for a moment I could have been back with the Millers, my foster folks, even though Mr. Miller looked at me funny all the time, and Mrs. Miller smelled like prunes. But all I had was Daddy now, and I suppose the dead girl they kept in the spare bedroom. I felt Daddy rise off the edge of my bed and leave. The air was just a tad cooler after he was gone. I couldn't see the kitty clock on the wall to read the time without my glasses, but it was forever before I went to sleep, each time creeping to the edge and pulling back awake. The next morning at the table, I could tell Daddy hadn't slept either. He kept blinking and wiping at his eyes. I think over stale breakfast cereal, it really hit him that Mama was completely gone. Not just visiting grandmother for the week or playing cards with some of her waitress friends overnight, but all the way gone. He looked confused, shooting his eyes over his shoulder every couple minutes like she was about to walk into the kitchen, and he twice opened his mouth, half looking at me like he wanted to say something. Finally, he got up and popped his head in the fridge. I looked over at Katie and she was just sitting at the table. I didn't like her. She stared too much. And whenever she wasn't staring at me, she was staring at something else. She smelled too. Not dead like the cat I found one summer that got caught in our backyard fence and died, but like medicine and chemicals. The lady from Children's Services said she was supposed to smell that way because of what they had treated her with. Mama and Daddy weren't supposed to be able to foster no more children, but when the state had started taking in dead people all of a sudden, Mama and Daddy could again. The only way I was gonna see my foster brother Rick again was if he died and came back too. I guess the dead don't count as much. Daddy tried knocking around over the stove with a couple eggs and a freezer bag full of bacon, but he didn't even know how to turn the ice on. I only got up from the table when I smelled the gas to turn the stove back off. He slammed the pans down and came over, jabbing a finger in my face. "Little boy," he said, "I ain't the maid. Get your own dang breakfast and get going." I poured myself a bowl of that stale, sugarless cereal, but one whiff of the milk when I took the cap off told me it had gone bad. I looked over at Katie, wondering how I was going to ask Daddy about school. She was staring at the basement door and hadn't touched her bowl. Mama would usually take me when I could wake her up. "Are you gonna drop us off?" "What?" Daddy shouted. His voice was really loud. He had that look in his eye again, like he was ready to start hitting. I stood up and took Katie by the hand, pulling her out of the chair and away from the basement door. Daddy shook his shoulders like something had crawled up his back and into his hair, and he walked out the kitchen. He didn't like touching anything she touched, and to be honest, it was the only time I could stand to touch her. I hadn't heard him leave, but I was sure he was gone. We walked down the hall hand in hand past Mama and Daddy's open bedroom door. I left her outside and went in when I saw Mama's purse on the dresser. She always came home with tip money, and sometimes she would give me a couple dollars to buy a lunch. I fished inside and pulled out a fistful of crumpled bills. Before I could stuff them in my pocket, tears I hadn't expected welled up, and I started sobbing. It wasn't that I was gonna miss her. She made for an awful mother, in some ways worse than Daddy. They fought all the time, and he didn't always win. One morning, all he said was, "I don't see how you can expect me to take you seriously." And Mama just swatted him upside the head with a hot frying pan full of sizzling. I cried because the money in her purse was the last of anything I would have of hers. The toilet flushed and I stood up and ran out of the room. I grabbed her hand just as Daddy was coming out. He didn't say anything, only pushed past us and into their room. He snatched up Mama's purse, dug through it, and tossed it aside. "Figures," he said. He threw on his cap, and as he was walking out the house he shouted, "Stay out the basement!" That wasn't a problem. I was scared of it. It wasn't even a real basement. The ceiling was so low I had to duck, and the floor was all exposed brick. Once I'd poked myself on a nail down there and had to get a tetanus shot. We took a cab to school. My first thought was to skip, but that wouldn't work. Attendance was mandatory for her kind, no exceptions. They didn't get sick, vacations had to be approved, and the state scheduled doctor's visits. If they took her away, then it would only be me and him. That afternoon I ate tacos while we walked home. The lady from Children's Services had told us some about where she came from. Her parents had died in a pocket outbreak 9 months before 2 counties over. They'd taken her in for something called reconditioning and told us she could never attack a living human being. The lady never told us if she was the one who'd killed her parents, but I had my suspicions. When she'd brought her, Daddy had made sure to put on his 4 special clothes, same ones as when he'd come to report his progress to the court before they made me go back home. He'd slicked back his hair and managed to shave a few hours off his 5 o'clock shadow. The lady had talked a whole lot, and Daddy had nodded a whole lot, saying yes to everything she'd said. Mama was at the bar working when they brought Katie, but he promised to relay all the lady had told him. Katie'd got the room Mama and Daddy had fixed up for the baby girl they'd stopped trying for years before. They'd gotten a check every month after she'd come to stay with us. Not that they needed to do much. New clothes every now and then, but that was about it. She didn't eat, but they'd bought her own bowl, plate, utensils, and a cup. With every meal she was supposed to sit with us while we ate, with either her bowl or plate, and silverware set out, and wood pieces shaped like little pieces of food. The lady had called it part of the resocialization process, as if she would ever start talking or get married or have any kids of her own. "All these arrears," Daddy had said after the lady was gone. "Well, I got one too." "Don't say it," Mama had said, slapping his chest. "But they've been good to her for a little while, at least while they were a tiny bit afraid. But she really didn't try to eat us. It was kinda nice 'cause they left me alone too. She would sit still and let Mama brush her hair. They gave Mama a special brush and told her not too much or her hair could come out. Sit quiet while we watched wrestling, and sit quiet at night while we slept. She did a lot of sitting. I realized sometime before waking up that morning I'd stopped exactly believing what Daddy had done. Mama had spent all night somewhere else before. Nobody ever told me where or why, but after a few days she usually came back. Maybe Daddy had only wanted to do it. Maybe he said it because he wanted me to think it, even for just a moment. Maybe it was just a weird roundabout way for him to try to hurt her feelings. But when we got home, I believed again. It was the smell, like that dead cat, but a lot stronger. We didn't have air conditioning and we had to keep all the windows shut because it wasn't safe where we lived. I locked the door, and by the time I was done opening the living room windows, Katie had gone to the kitchen. I barely caught up with her as she was starting to scratch at the basement doorknob. The dead smell was really strong in the kitchen. I pulled her away and led her back to the living room. Nothing good was on and I didn't feel like doing homework, so we watched Jeopardy. I drifted off on the couch, and when I woke up, Katie was staring at me. It looked like she was smiling, but she was panting like she was out of breath. She was filthy though, like she'd been rolling around in dirt, but the door was still locked and I didn't think she could crawl out the window and back in. I didn't want to, but I took her hand and led her into the bathroom. I wasn't supposed to see her naked, and didn't want to, so I cleaned everywhere I could see dirt with her clothes on. She watched me the whole time, and when I was done, I was dog-tired. She really had had it all over. I left her in her room and made it into mine, shutting the door before crawling into bed. Sometime in the night, I heard Daddy come home, go to his room and drop one boot, then the other. I heard a creak from somewhere down the hall, and then there were other footsteps, slow, uneven ones. They got closer until there was a scratch on Daddy's door. "Lily?" I thought I heard Daddy say, but he never called Mama by her first name. It was the last thing he said, or at least the last thing I understood. There was a loud thump and then scuffling. Daddy started screaming, and I could hear stuff in their room being knocked over, broken. It went on for a good 5 minutes, but it didn't sound like Daddy was winning this time. I listened to what had to be Katie scratching at the doorknob. A long time later, those footsteps lumbered over to my door. A second hand started scratching and I stayed quiet, pulling the covers over my eyes. I heard another pair of footsteps stumble around in the hall. One of them must have bumped into the light switch, because there was a strip of light under my door from the hall. I could see the still shadows on the floor. Mama, Daddy and Katie were all waiting to take me away.